interest. Simple interest is pretty easy to do. I don't think it's a difficult thing to solve problems that are simple interest problems. Now it's not called simple interest because it's easy to do. It's called simple interest as a distinction between a different kind of interest, like compound interest. Okay, so we have like those two different kinds of interests. We have simple interest and we have compound interest. So I guess between the two of them, I guess the compound is more complicated. So they named this one simple. All right, now the kinds of problems that you'll see that are related to simple interest, those are always going to be either a loan or an investment. And in both of those situations, you get a percentage, or they charge you a percentage, depending on what it is, an investment or a loan, a percentage of interest, okay? And there's always time that's connected to that interest, all right? So anyway, they're usually going to be loan problems or investment problems, okay? And that will tell you that, oh, okay, this is a simple interest problem. Now, I say it's easy to do because we have a formula. Principal times rate times time. Okay, yeah, so that's all it is. It's just the multiplication of three amounts. 1, 2, 3, and then just two multiplications, and that's it. Now, of course, it's easy, but you can't forget two small things. The rate of interest, they usually give us that, and here's an example right here. They usually give us that rate in a percentage form, okay? In a percent form. And we can't do the multiplication when it's in percent form. We have to make sure it's in a decimal form, so we have to make that conversion. Also, years, or the time, needs to be expressed in years. Now, you'll see some problems that will have the time expressed in months, okay, like 5 months or something like that. So, just got to make sure that you do those two conversions, I guess. Make sure that the interest rate is in a decimal form, and that the time is in years. Okay, so let's just say this is a loan, $1,250 with a percentage rate of 12% and for 2 years. So this problem's already halfway there for us, halfway ready for us to multiply, because the time's already expressed in years, right? So piece of cake. A little check mark right there, right? Okay. But this one we have to change to a decimal. So how do we do that? Hang on, I have another color. How do we change 12% to decimal? Well, first you have to know where the point is. Even though the decimal is not shown in this amount, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's just that there's no need to put a decimal because we don't have anything in the decimals places. So it's basically saying 12.0, 12 point nothing percent. So when there's point nothing, they don't put the nothing and they don't put the point. But it doesn't mean that the point doesn't exist. So you need to be clear on being able to locate where that point starts off. So in other words, what I mean is, for this to be 12, the decimal point to start with is right there. Okay, it's 12 point nothing. All right, so that's important because to convert the percentage to a decimal, all we have to do is divide by 100. And I think that's really easy to do, and that's just moving the decimal 2 to the left, 2 positions to the left. Okay, so in other words, our percent rate in decimal form is 0.12. Ta-da! It's not really hard, right? That's what I was trying to get at. Okay, and okay. So when you multiply these, and I would hope that you guys are trying to do some of these by hand, not with a calculator or your smartphone. Rather, try to do it by hand. It's just so you can practice your multiplication tables. Those skills are very important, and just because you know you can do it once, you can probably do it faster and better the more you practice. Okay. So anyway, when I see a percent problem, or an interest problem like this, ready to go, ready to multiply, usually I try to find one multiplication out of the two that I can do in my mind, mentally. And that is to say, for me anyway, well, just remember one thing. When we're multiplying, or for that matter, when we're adding, when we're making an augmentation, when we're augmenting amounts, and that's going to be multiplying or adding. And let's say I'm going to be doing several amounts. I'm going to add several amounts, or I'm going to multiply several amounts, kind of like in this problem. It doesn't matter in which order I multiply, or also with addition, doesn't matter which way you add things up, especially when there's multiple things to add or multiple things to multiply. So in other words, it's the same if I was to multiply 3 times 5, or if I was to multiply 5 times 3. Or for that matter, if I put 3 amounts, 3 times 5 times 5, well, maybe change that. 3 times 5 times 4, or I could multiply 4 times 5 times 3, or 5 times 4 times 5 times 4 times 3, or 4 times 3 times 5. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so that's what I mean. It doesn't matter the order when I'm doing these kinds of augmentations. Same thing with addition. But anyway, so when I see this, I have the liberty to multiply what I want to multiply. And if I can do one of these mentally in my head, then by hand, I'm only doing one multiplication. Does that make sense? All right. So for me, what I notice right away is I can multiply these two in my mind. 1250, or 1,250 times 2 is 2,500, right? So then I would write on my paper 2,500 times, my little line, times 0.12. So in other words, I'm only actually doing one multiplication by hand. Okay, it's you know, if you go 1250 times 0.12, you'll get this other number with a decimal, and then you have to multiply that one by hand. It can be harder. It can be a little bit more, more work than you need to do. But anyway, so I did this one earlier. When you multiply all three of those, you should get $300. Okay, so if this is a loan, if we borrowed 1,250 with 12% interest for 2 years, at the end of that loan, at the end of that, when it's due, we're going to owe $300 in interest. Okay, so I guess in total, I mean, that's another thing, another good thing to point out. Some problems are only going to ask you for the interest. That's all they're interested in. They're interested in the interest. Other problems, they want to know how much the whole loan is owed, how much is owed in total. So for that kind of problem, we would have to add the principal plus the interest. So that would be 1,250 plus 300, and that would be 1,550, right? 1,550. Okay, so just pay attention to what the problem is asking you, okay, before you have your final answer, okay? All right, I'm going to put another example. And we'll say, let's do another loan. Let's say this loan is $900. And they'll give us 8% interest on it. It's okay. And then, oops, I was writing my Spanish there. Okay, but now it's not in years. The time's not in years, it's in months. Uh-oh, 6 months. All right, so now we have to change both of these. Okay, so I guess the easiest one is the percentage, changing that to a decimal. So for it to be 8, my point is there, it's 8.0, right? So divide that by 100 is simply moving the decimal 2 to the left, okay? So that would give us, 900 times 0.08, okay? Now 6 months. I think most of you can understand that it's half a year, right? It's half a year. Now I can say half, like 1/2, or I can change that into another form. I would probably want to use the decimal form. And remember, fractions, decimals, I mean, they all have, there's 3 forms, right? There's a fraction, decimal, and percent. And we just got to figure out, it's our job to figure out which form we want to use. Okay. So I would put 0.5 for myself anyway. I wouldn't use the fraction here. Anyway, this is kind of an easy one, but they're not all so easy. What about 9 months, right? What part of a year is 9 months, for example? Or 3 months for that matter. So 6 months is easy. So let's go ahead and do this one. Let's talk about how we do this. Remember that, well, 6 months is not a whole year. It's part of a year. So this is where we have to go back to those concepts of a fraction. Remember that fractions are part of a whole. In this example, the whole is the year. Now, the year is divided up into 12 equal parts. Well, it's supposed to be equal parts. I mean, you know that months have different number of days. But basically, we're saying the year is cut up into 12 equal parts. And for that matter, I guess we could say it's also divided up into 352 equal parts each day, right? How many days are in a year? But anyway, that's going far and beyond if we need to. we're talking about months. So the year is divided up into 12 months. The whole is divided into 12 equal parts. So that's the job of the denominator, to tell us how many parts the whole is cut up into, or divided up into. And of the 12, we have 6. Okay, so it's 6/12. And then we would have to reduce that to its lowest term, which would be 1/2. Okay, can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. All right, so 1/2. And then I guess you could convert, you've got to learn how to convert the fraction to a decimal. You divide 1 divided by 2. Anyway, so we get 0.5. Okay, so when we do all these multiplications, I've got some practice with this. So 900 times 0.5 I can actually do in my mind, because that's basically saying what's half of 900, okay? And that would be 450. So then I would write 450 times 0.08. I just lost my marker. Anyway, whoops. So anyway, I already did it earlier, so when you do it, you should get, I believe, 36. Okay, $36. All right. So if it was a loan, a 6-month loan, 36 bucks in interest ain't too bad, really. I guess in total you would have to pay back 936 bucks, right? Make sense? Okay. So let's put up another one. Let's put another one. I have one right here. If you guys want to stop the video for a little bit, maybe try it yourself, and then we'll do it together, you know. So this one says, $800 invested at 7.5 interest for 3 months. If you want to give it a shot, go ahead. Okay. So I'll go ahead and start. All right. So you see that? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and write down the principal first, right? $800. That's our principal. Now my interest rate, it's in a percent. How do I know that? Because it says percent. It has a little symbol, the percentage symbol. Okay, even though there's a decimal here, you might be tempted to say, oh, it's already 7.5. I already have a decimal. It's already in decimal form, but it's not. If it has this symbol, the percentage symbol, it's in percentage. It's not a decimal yet. So we still have to divide by 100 to convert it to a decimal. And to do that, it's simply moving the decimal point 2 to the left, dividing by 100. 2 to the left because 100 has 2 zeros. Okay, and then we would have to put a 0 here and like that. So I'll write it down over here. Okay, 0.075. And now my time is in 3 months. It's in months again. So now I have to convert those 3 months to years. And how do I do that? Well, again, we know that the whole, that's the year, has 12 equal parts. Of the 12, I have 3. So that would go in the numerator. And then if you reduce this fraction to its lowest term, it'll give you 1/4. Reducing both the 3 and the 12, dividing them by 3, right? Give you 1/4. And if you convert the 1/4 to a decimal, that will give you 0.25. Okay? All right, so 0.25. And, well, I kind of know something about this too. 800 times 0.25 is basically saying what's a quarter of 800? What would that be? 800 divided by 4 is 2, so it'd be 200 times this one. But again, that comes with practice, okay? So keep practicing, I guess, right? But anyway, I did this one earlier, so if you multiply 800 times 0.075 times 0.25, you should get 15, okay? And that would be our final answer. So again, depends on the question. If they only want to know what the interest is, then it's 15 bucks. If they want to know the total, then it would have to be 815 bucks, okay? Oh, yeah, well, I mean, that's how much they would owe us. I forgot. I thought it was a loan. It's not a loan. It's an investment. So we invest $800, and after 3 months, we would get 15 bucks. Big money, right? This is what we would consider a safe investment. And safe investments are the ones that don't really pay that well. That's just the sad way of it. So if you want to make more money, you got to take on more risk. And the more risky ones, well, they pay better, but you can lose your money, so be careful. Anyway, so I have another one right here. I'll read it. Maybe you want to do it again. Pause video. Do the problem. It says, Ilda received a student loan for $1,500. for 18 months at a 3% interest rate. Okay? How much will she owe once her loan is due? Okay, so this problem is asking for the complete loan amount, totally. You know, the principal plus the interest, okay? So if you want to go ahead and do it, go ahead and do it. Pause video, try it, see what you get. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with putting my principal. Okay, that was $1,500. And 3% interest. And it said 18 months. Okay, cool. So again, got to make my percentage rate into a decimal, and my time needs to be expressed in years. Okay, so again, for this to be 3%, my point is here, and I had to divide by 100 to convert it to a decimal. It's just moving the decimal 2 to the left. All right, so I would have 1,500 times 0.03. Remember, there's another zero because there's an extra space, right? Okay, and 18 months. Oops, wait. Did you guys figure out what 18 months was? That's a year and a half, right? Okay, so we have 1.5. That would be years, 1.5 years, okay? All right. So if you do the multiplication, I did it earlier, it should give you $67.5. Okay? Now remember the problem, what the problem said. The problem was asking for the, how much will she owe? And that means everything. Not just in interest, but how much does she owe once the loan is due, right? And that would be, she owes the principal that she borrowed, she owes $1,500, and the interest, which was $67.50, 67.5. So it would, I guess the total answer, the final answer would be $1,567.50. Okay? So again, simple interest is actually simple. That's kind of nice. Not everything in math is so easy, right? So simple, easy formula. 3 things to multiply together. Just got to remember that your interest rate needs to be in decimal form and your time needs to be expressed in years, okay? So